We are now into the draft. Who flashed that fight? Now on the blue side, AOE. On the red side, Ziggs, Anivia, and now the Karma being respect banned away from random capitals.
Yep, and I think that goes to what RMC was speaking about there at the end of the game. I think who flashed that fight will recognize that that double enchanter was still pretty strong, right? And it did definitely help, at the very least, pack sacks in a couple of those situations. So despite winning against it, I think taking one of those away is good. And I also think it's smart to take away what could be a comfort pick from the substitute here in the mid lane, right? We mentioned he performed very well on in the lane. Why not take that one away, force him onto something else, and maybe make it even harder up against Donut Maker, who did sort of grow into that game after he got a couple kills through the macro plays. So I think this is a smart adaptation already coming in from who flashed that fight, but AOE matches it with that ban of the Nocturne. That Viego, though, is going to be left up, and they're going to jump all over it.
And securing the Jinx for Pax Axis that was banned away last game, that's going to be the Jinx Lulu. I think this is a little bit stronger than the on-hit Varus, personally. Just generally, I think Jinx is in a better spot than a lot of people think she is right now. I think she's kind of underrated. Works very well with the Lulu as well. This Viego, though, can be top, can be mid, technically can be a jungler. He was designed to jungle, guys. But most likely in one of those solo lanes, as we see the Yasuo hover. Of course, just trolling, it's going to be the Leona for who flashed that fight. So going, I think, more into the Stingus basket now, as he really was kind of a non-factor in that previous game.
Yep, a little bit more. This is a bit of a Dokdo special here. Okay, if we want to talk about giving Stingus the reins, a Draven or Kalista would do it, but I think we're being trolled here. Okay, yep, it's gonna be Tristana. Still potential kill lane here, but it is kind of hard against Lulu, I would say.
I mean, Tristana typically is a kill lane, but as you mentioned, with that Lulu pickup, it's going to be very difficult. What it is, though, is a push lane. This is where we're going to see Rift Herald being dropped if who flash that fight pick up that first Herald, because, oh my gosh, you got bombs, you got Herald, that tower just melts. They pick up the Morgana, though. This one should end up actually going into the mid lane for random capitals, as they already have the Lulu being picked up. This was banned away from them last game, so I'm excited to see how random capitals does on this pick.
Yep, I would agree with you there, and I think it'll actually be interesting to see who does get the push. I think you kind of need to engage on Leona to get push against Jinx Lulu. Early levels, I would imagine, are very Jinx Lulu favorite, actually, in the push here with those rockets and the extra ranged champion. Yeah, but there is a point at which you can just kind of engage on the Lulu and threaten that all in from this who flashed that fight bottom lane. The Siege, though, yeah, the Siege will be nice, that's for sure. So I'm interested to see how this Morgana interacts in general. I'm not sure if it's up against the Viego or not, but we'll have to see how it does do. We haven't seen a Morgana mid lane in quite some time. Maybe champion pool, maybe just going for something comfortable here. But we'll have to see kind of how this rounds out in the phase 2, because that Viego can still go anywhere.
Yeah, and LeBlanc being respect banned away from Donut Maker. Obviously, early game wasn't really too much of a playmaker on it, but he still played very well on the pick into that late game. We also see the Aatrox being respect banned away, so they don't know where this Viego's going. They just know they don't want to face the LeBlanc, and they don't want to face this Aatrox again. With the Orianna being banned away, these targets coming in towards the mid lane. Interesting, because when you have Lulu and Morgana, that should be mid support. And banning out mid laners here, I think, are just wasted bans from who flashed that fight, unless they think it's Lulu top, which I doubt.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it too, particularly after Andesu tried to play a split pusher in Fiora. Of course, I don't expect to see the Fiora again here, after I think that was kind of a big problem with the way they needed to execute their draft.
No. Okay. So, as an anecdote, during the game, I specifically was talking with DJ about how, oh man, these double Moonstone comps, when those were really popular, did very terribly in Plat and below, statistically speaking, because it is very hard to play a double enchanter setup. And I specifically was talking about, Seraphine Lulu was kind of a trap pick. You now have a triple enchanter setup with the Seraphine bot lane most likely from AOE, well, not bot lane, excuse me, it is Lulu top. So you have a triple enchanter set up from AOE onto this Jinx. Great, you have your Jinx damage source. Triple enchanter is even harder to play than double enchanter. I don't care what rank you are, this is a very difficult comp from AOE, and they just locked themselves into a win condition that honestly they didn't play to at all last game, and I doubt they'll be able to make this game.
Yeah, this actually, so something we mentioned, in game number 1, things kind of went away from what we were talking about or where we thought they would go, right? It was a lot about Baka being in the right place at the right time with the paranoias. We didn't quite see the, exceptional laning phase out of Donut Maker, although he did kind of turn on in the team fights. And it really wasn't about bot lane at all. They just kind of farmed up and got strong. They just left their AD carries to be there, right? And be at objectives. This now is going to be much more about Paxax, right? This is a Jinx composition. You finish it out with the Xin Zhao, sure, but like the Jinx is going to have to be the one doing the damage. You're going to have a little bit coming in on the top, which is I think what the Xin Zhao and the Seraphine might be for here. But this is going to be all about Paxax. He is going to have to navigate these fights. He's going to have to stay safe. He's going to have to get resets to try to win this game for AOE. And it is a bit interesting that they go for triple enchanter because while that's very nice and all, it's not a lot of protection for Jinx here with this composition. Number 2 problem I could have with this is we were talking about new items here, and I only see one source of real damage, Mr. Finnick, so I feel like there might be a niche item that could go very well against this kind of composition.
Oh, yes. Anathema's Chains, perhaps? No, I mean, legitimately, you can give people negative tenacity, right? Like, that is the big thing about Anathema's Chains, right? Grant you, there isn't a lot of lockdown from who flashed that fight, right? You have Leona, you have Viego. But what lockdown you do have, if you can make that last up against AOE, what's their lockdown? Seraphine Morgana? That's it. And those are unreliable skill shots, whereas technically it's still skill shots from Who Flashed That Fight. It is more reliable crowd control from this Leona than you're ever going to get from the Seraphine or from this Morgana, just due to the nature of how fast Zenith's Blade is and how short the spell range is, and how easy it is for Leona to actually set up that spell. So I don't even have to like question it. I think I like Who Flashed That Fight's draft more, but AOE, this has a lot of question marks for me. Triple Enchanter is nigh on impossible to play because you don't have a front line. More than anything else, you don't have a front line, you don't have a damage source. I mean, you have one damage source, but you don't have a front line.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think what they've done here is make this very hard for them to execute, right? It's very difficult, and this is just like draft number 1. Yeah, it's not a split pushing draft, but in the sense that it is hard to execute or requires very specific conditions to work, yeah, that's what we're looking at here again. And it didn't work out great in game number 1 here, Finnick, up against the best team in the league. One of the best, smartest teams we've ever seen in Heavy League. Like, this feels like kind of grasping at straws, and maybe AOE recognizing that they're locked in playoffs now doesn't care as much anymore. Maybe this is experimental, but this does feel extremely hard to pull off for me. It feels like there's been a little bit kind of a miss here. You could have put any sort of tanky bot. I mean, like, imagine just having a set here instead of Morgana. Yeah. Right? Like, very easy to play. Right? Like, very easy to play. Good wave clear. Just like gives you a front line and a tanky body. You can extend the Seraphine ult off of it, but instead you've got 4 members that want to be in the back line, 1 member that wants to go in, and then you try to get a reset on Paxax, and that feels very hard against this composition that can dive onto you, can dish damage onto you, and doesn't honestly feel like it's going to have that big of a problem shredding through you.
And Who Flashed That Fight is a very slippery comp too. You have Rocket Jump, you have Dash from Viego, you have an Akali with the Shuriken Flip as well. It's just, I like getting this unreliable lockdown, like hitting a Morgana Q is going to be extremely difficult, and that is your primary form of lockdown. Yeah, you have Chompers technically, you have Seraphine Root as well, but you cannot land a Seraphine Root against an Akali. You cannot land a Seraphine Root against a Tristana unless they're already taken down. You have to hit these bindings, and unfortunately, that's a lot. That is a lot that you're putting in either to your support or to your mid laner. We don't know where the Seraphine and Morgana are going at the moment. Going back to that Anathema's Chains points, outside of the whole negative tenacity thing, Vendetta is just such a nice passive to have against the single damage comp of the Jinx. As you were kind of actually alluding to, not the negative tenacity aspect of it. I apologize for that. Yeah, let's dive into this Anathema's Chains. Is it going to be on Viego and on Olaf, or where do we see this item being built?
Yeah, I would imagine most likely the Olaf here. Probably, I think the Viego likes to have that 2-item power spike a lot more, right? Those 2 items are kind of tried and true for him to keep him alive, to get resets in the fight. I think you could see it on Olaf as like a second item here after a Gore Drinker, because he's going to want to run into their face. And this Olaf pick, while I normally don't like Olaf without an enchanter, actually feels kind of nice to me, given the fact that you just press that R button and you turn off so much of what this composition wants to do to you, right? So many slows, so many charms, so many things that are in your way. You just say, absolutely not. None of those 3 enchanters have the damage to actually kill you, even with the lowered resistances of the Ragnarok. So all you really care about is not having Jinx damage you. So I could very much see the Anathema's Chains coming out as like a second or third item here from this Olaf as he just runs right into Paxak's face.
We're having a couple technical difficulties, though, into the game. Apparently there was some lag going on, but we are now finally into the draft. With that, let's figure out our highlight matchup here, right? We obviously know that it's going to be Paxax, right? It is our win condition for AOE God Squad. You know, you have a Lulu top, you have a Seraphine, you have a Morgana, everything's in this basket. Where are we going to see who Flash That Fight's win condition? It looks like the Akali top with the Viego mid at the moment. Are we going to see side lane pressure, or not side lane, solo lane pressure? Are we going to see this Olaf pop off once again?
Yeah, I think for who flashed that fight, it's going to be about access to that backline, right? And so I think solo lane pressure will largely be what we're looking for here in the early game. I think Olaf is going to want to farm to 6 a little bit here. I don't know who really wins that skirmish between him and the Jin Zhao in the early game, but I don't think you really need to test it, particularly if there is another enchanter in the mid lane and they can roam over. You will just lose out on that one. So if I am Baka here, I'm once again just kind of trying to farm to 6 and waiting to see where I can strike, right? Kind of like last game. Unfortunately for Scout, he doesn't really have a requirement to stick to a top laner like he did in last game. He can kind of do a little more farming if he would like to, and potentially even shadow his bottom lane. But I do think we'll see more about the solo laners here up until level 6, up until 1, maybe 2 Drakes for who flashed that fight, at which point they will look to group and look to try to run down this composition of enchanters, because again, going to be really hard for them to slow down the Olaf, and going to be kind of easy for Viego to get a reset, right, on all these squishy members if you time it right. So I think this could go very well for who flash that fight in any sort of team fight, and I think that's what they'll be looking for post-laning phase.
That being said, though, we're going to send it to a break. When we return, Necrox and Random Minion Caster will bring you Game 2 of Who Flashed That Fight versus AOE God Squad. You won't want to miss it.
Ooh. Ayaya. Ooh. Ayaya. AOE. It is all AOE God Squad, and that is all they want to do. It is a full-on ooh, ayaya composition built to heal and shield. No one's ever gonna die. But who flashed that fight, man? They got the bruisers, they got the playmakers, and I'm excited for game 2. I'm dead, Necrox, right now. I can't even pull up with this. Oh my goodness, yeah. So, I mean, it's a fairly apt description of what the AOE God Squad is trying to do here. And you know what? With that said, I think we can focus on who flash and fight for the rest of this game, because they actually have a comp that's going to require some sort of skill other than clicking the right champion. I mean, yeah, you got Akali, you got the Viego, 2 pretty high skill-intensive champions, along with Baka, who may not be playing the most skill-intensive champ, but is going to need to get ahead if he ever wants to be able to touch the backline, ever wants to be able to do any damage, especially into what AOE have drafted. So, Baka, I'm looking at you in this early game. Hopefully, there's something there for the Olaf in tow. And we'll be starting on his bot side. Mel Scout going to be headed up top side. Hopefully not a 1 in 10 Jin Zhao or whatever we got last game. But man, if you die with these people surrounding you, I have no clue what's going wrong. I fully agree. I mean, well, we do know actually what happened last game, and it involved the Nocturne, which was banned this game. So I think the odds for Mel Scout having a much better early game is there now. You've got the supports to back you up. And I think for Baka, Baka's actually not in a bad spot in the early game. As an Olaf right now, this is a smorgasbord, a buffet of ganks in all your lanes here. Yeah, sure, supports are kind of hard to kill, but at the same time, if you've got an Olaf and you've got anybody in your lane who can even try to just barely set you up there, that's good enough. And then you can just run down these supports. They're not very strong without someone to support.
Yeah, and Paxax and Metal Scout would be the two possible members, which means bot lane Paxax is going to have to keep his farm up, going to have to make sure this 2v2 is well. And this is what the draft was designed to do. Level 2 in. Black Shield not on the right target, though. Kenny Master Lin, bombs on him, kicking, explode, not enough damage. Sting is having to hop away. Heal still available. Ignite down for Dokdo. Binding connects. Paxax just needs vision, but he's autoing the wrong target. In comes Zenith Blade in return. Heal's going to be used now. Paxax at about a third HP. Flashing forward. Bomb is on. I think it's enough. Stingus is going to drop first. First blood to Kenny, but it's a turn right back to Dokdo. And we're getting intense in the bot side 1-for-1.
Support's picking up the kills, and I know that AOE God Squad got first blood, but this is a win for Who Flash and Fight because your entire comp revolves around Paxax, whereas Stingus, hit or miss, we can leave you if you're not doing too hot.
Yeah, top side, Dust to Dawn taking a little bit of beat down from this Lulu. Meanwhile, mid lane, same thing's going on. These champions, they win lane, they win game. It's pretty fun to play against, and a double D shield is no surprise. Lulu top is one of those champions you just have to be so careful because the damage is so unexpected.
I do want to touch back into that mid lane matchup a little bit because Viego just got nerfed this patch. Specifically, lane Viego, where your healing from your minions has been reduced by 50%. That is significant. Prior to this patch, Viego versus Seraphine is a Viego 1 lane there. You out-sustain, you're more mobile, and you can punish. But now, you can see the pokes landing, but it has allowed Baka to sneak in the back.
Stun in, Baka going in. Doesn't find the undertow though. Donut Maker hopping forward. Does a random escape. Dokdo is here as well. There is no flash. One more axe connects, and Donut gonna grab the kill number 1. Kenny on the backside gonna land a root, but Mel Scout is all alone with no black shield. Double kill to the Seraphine, man. That's not the way it's supposed to go. It's my team Seraphine, not your team Seraphine. And Kenny is dead as well. Sting is hopping over the wall. Snub be damned. He's 1 kill away from being that 2-1 Tristana. That is so damn scary. Who flashed that fight? This is what they want to do. It's get ahead. Mid lane, don't think random ever dies here. We'll just walk out. But Who flashed that fight? Really putting these bruisers to good use.
Random should be fine. I mean, top lane TPing back into pushing wave is a nightmare. Mid lane, it's risky, but it's doable, especially if you've got flash. And we get a beautiful replay of how Baka just got to run into lane. Yes, you missed the undertow, but my question is, where is the flash from random, right? Like, you had flash this entire time. There's a wall there. There's a wall on the other side. And you just kind of took it. And that's where everything snowballs against you here. The healing coming through from randoms kept you alive in lane, but now it's keeping Baka. Now it's keeping Donut Maker alive, and then this is just icing on the cake for Stingus.
I forget that I can't ever look at kill callouts this game because, yeah, that's not Seraphine getting a double kill. It's the Viego. So, we're going to have to figure out that one on the fly, but instead, 2-0-1 on Donut Maker in mid lane. Baka, 3 assists to his name as well, involved in just about everything outside of that bot lane frantic skirmish. And AOE, their composition may not look too good if the gold is going to swing so heavily for Who flashed that fight, but they just need to hold on, really. They don't need to win their lanes, they just need to survive, and 5v5s are so rough against this composition. You just need to not go down, and then maybe there's something. Mouse got hanging around in the wings in mid lane, but shouldn't be able to find his Donut TPs back mid.
All the wards pretty much for Who Flashed That Fight has expired, so they need to play a bit on the back foot. They have to respect the fact that Chinsao early game is very strong even without supports. Dust to Dawn, I don't know if this is the right call here. Lulu's very hard to assassinate, and really there's only one winning lane for Who Flashed That Fight, and it is the mid lane. They should be playing around it.
No binding from Kenny to land. Stingus still has a rocket jump, I believe, to get away, but that's not what you want to see. Support getting CC'd, locked up, and knocked down. Charm will not find the mark. Dokdo, please die! Random Capital finally picks it up with a beat drop, but man, that took way too long.
They were trying to get the kill over Paxax, and that almost cost them top side. Dust to Dawn
Slick moves there from Dust to Dawn. Still has R2 going onto the turret. Grabbing the kill. Solo bolo, but it's returned in kind. 1-for-1 top side. Stingus now wants to fight against Pack Sax. The root connects onto the Flame Chompers, but resetting the W. Dodging out on the binding, but it's not enough. The Black Shield is there in time. Mel Scout doing Dragon, but not against Donut Maker. He wants a part of the fray, wants a part of the fight. Now getting the reset. Number 1. Can he get any more? No, the binding is in from Kenny. In comes Baka. Axe does not connect, which means there's no chase down. Who flashed that fight? Lose their mid laner, but AOE lose their jungle.
Oh boy. Okay, a lot of questionable decisions there from the side of who flashed that fight. I appreciate that they're trying to make action happen, but diving a top lane against a Lulu is not ideal. And jumping into a fully stacked minion wave in the bot side also costing them fights that they otherwise might have won here. And then it feels like that early lead that they got, the early lead that they needed, has been largely squandered here. The good news, Baka didn't die. Donut Maker is still up and ahead here, and they're the two main early game forces.
Yeah, still looking at to try to make something happen. Mel Scout on top side as well. Thinking about doing something against Dust to Dawn. Hopefully should be just fine. Nope, just kidding. Sorry, I couldn't see that fight actually because my observer decided to troll me. So I was going away blind. Dust to Dawn dies, and it's straight secured.
Didn't happen. Mel Scout getting a kill? What? That isn't part of the script.
I couldn't see it. Didn't happen, clearly.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we did come back in time, though, to see who flashed that fight, picking up a Inferno Drake on the bot side. A little bit more damage, and hey, that's a good thing. If you're going to play this aggressively, if you're going to be diving turrets, and if you're going to be hunting them down like this...
Okay, Sting is hopping over the Chompers, but not sure that they have enough. Rocket is available. Meanwhile, Pack Sax maybe lining up the shot. No, a little bit left. Sting is able to keep himself alive, but Kenny may not be able to find the same fate as a Ragnarok comes through, unseeable. Now Dust to Dawn in a 1v2, got some hot feet. Can he get away? Shuriken Flip not quite available, trying to dance out, but Mel Scout is on the chase with a knock-up, and Dust to Dawn finds himself going down one more time. And Pack Sax, man, this is not where you want to be. Between an Olaf, a Morgana, and a Tristana, I think you just take your death, man. Maybe Stingus dies, but no, the rocket jump comes in time, and who flashed that fight? Grab one more kill.
I just also want to point out, Stingus didn't have to tank the turret. He did. Like, literally anybody on his team could have helped him and autoed first, but they let the bomb explode. And it's fine. You get the kill anyways. Pack Sax was not going anywhere. And this is good for who flashed the fight. You can sack Dust to Dawn. Dust to Dawn will skill up. It is the Akali, but the longer you keep this Jinx down, the longer it's going to take for God Squad to really come online. A Xin Zhao with 2 supports, with 3 supports, is scary, but it's not going to win the huge 5v5 fights. That is on this Jinx.
Yeah, it is all on the Jinx, honestly. Mel Scout is just there to buy time. He's probably just going to build some sort of a bruiser item and then go towards full tank like he did last game. Pack Sax is really the one that you want the gold on. Is pretty far ahead in farm as well, so should be just fine to do that extra damage when we get to these later stages. For now, Dokdo chilling in a brush in try. Sting is trying to hold this wave. Shouldn't be able to do it. Binding goes wide. So 3 casters, yeah, against a cannon. Not going to freeze. This one's going to push back out. And guess who's headed bot side? It's Mel Scout.
Yeah, Mel Scout is down a level right now and is down a lot of CS. Has not completed his first mythic, and Baka has. So, yes, Mel Scout is coming, but so is Baka. And I know who my money's on in this battle between jungles.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that the 2-2 Xin Zhao without the Mythic wins against Baka with Ragnarok and the Gorge Ranker. There's the engaging. The played it a little bit late, but Dokdo needs to be careful not to die first. Here comes a Ragnarok. Mel Scout. It's just instantly wiped away. And chop, chop, baby. 2 more on the menu. Pack Sax having to flash out. But who flashed that fight? Picking up easy pickings. Stingus barely kept alive after the Super Mega Death Rocket, but nothing in return. 2-0.
I love the fact that they're basing in lane as well. It's kind of like, come get me, right? Like if Paxak steps out, Baka's literally just waiting around the corner there. Meanwhile, topside, Dust to Dawn. Every time we look top, it feels like Dust to Dawn is just getting bullied by the Kool-Aid dispenser in the top lane that is Lulu right now. And that is unfortunately how the lane kind of goes, right? Like you aren't expected to win that. And for now, Baka has decided that too bad Dust to Dawn. We're going to make it up to Stingus. We're going to cap this lane and we're going to try and get him ahead. It's been sort of working for the most part here. And I think soon, or the moment the TP comes up for Donut Maker, I would like to see some sort of play made into the top lane. Whether it be Baka going up there and letting the TP go into the bot lane, or whether it's Donut Maker just flat out TPing the top lane.
Donut Maker looking for something in mid. Stun connects with a Spectral Maw. Uses the Heartbreaker. Charmed up under the turret. One more would kill him. Gets the reset for a little bit of extra HP. And somehow he survives now on bot side. The Ragnarok into Paxax, who has no flash. The final Axe finds the kill, but it's not enough to save the 80 carry. Stingus will die. Finally, the auto from Kenny Master Lin follows the rocket jump. One more binding onto the jungle. Mel Scout not able to find it. Dodo coming in with a Zenith Blade from long range. And who flashed that fight still come out on top 3 for 1.
Delayed teleport, the delayed flash, pardon me, from Mel Scout there, wasting it a little bit. Would have been good if he could use it to get out, but he went further in. Is going to cost them their Dragon coming up in 35 seconds, so neither team can really take advantage of the skirmish we just saw bot. Instead, I suspect we're going to see more action here in the mid lane as Dokdo roaming out.
That flash was awkward from Random Capitals. There's a reason why you aren't the starting roster, buddy, and that flash is exactly it.
Hey, to be fair, it got him out of range initially!
Oh, okay, Paxax. Nice shot, man.
Wow, solid snipe. I did not see that coming up the river, but it might have cost him his life as Stingus gets over the chompers there.
I didn't know Stingus. You saw him the entire time, man. The Y-axis, the Z-axis exists, but yeah, still gotta be careful about those chompers. And with mid laner on reset, TPing. Actually, though, we're going for the fight. Mel Scout popping the Rift Herald, but I'm not sure exactly why. Donut Maker looking for the kill on a Kenny Master Lin. If he gets a reset, he'll get a little bit more health to work with, but having to flash away means there's no re-engage angle, but health bars low for AOE will push them off the Drake.
Do I think that teleport?
All right, he's dead. He's dead, right? Yeah, he's dead. All right, he's gone. But so is Stingus. Does he get the reset, though, actually over the wall? He does. He's alive. Dusk looking for the 1v1. Misses the shuriken flip, though, so will not find the kill onto Endesu. These two teams permanently fighting, but not permanently making the right calls.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, I would argue from start to finish the series so far, has Who Flashed That Fight been making smart calls? Looking at their draft? Not necessarily. But are they better at playing the game? Yes. Yes, they are. Donut Maker should not have survived that, but he managed to peel them off Dragon. Stingus should not have been allowed to go in and hop out like that. Does. And they get the Dragon to boot as well. This is just... It just feels unfair at this point. They're not playing better macro decisions. They're just playing better like, individually, mechanically.
I swear Paxax is just sending this rocket off cooldown. And someone's got to be low HP, right? Our team just wants to fight. That means someone's low somewhere. And just praying he picks up more kills because he's a solo carry of the AOE squad. And yeah, I think Who Flashed That Fight, you nailed it on the head here, RMC. They're probably just better at playing League of Legends. But do you need to be good at playing the video game when you're running Morgana, Seraphine, Lulu? And the answer, almost certainly, is no. So it doesn't matter about your skill cap. With the enemies just press healing and shielding, and you never die. Looking for top side, and Desu trying to get away. Does have the wild growth and the flash. Hopping forward with the R2. The perfect execution is anything but as Andesu just walks out. Maybe something to find at the back end. Mel Scout doesn't land the skill shot, so no extended range. Will just be ult for ult trade and flashes as well.
No way. Okay, so this is a problem right here, right? Like, we've been focusing a lot on bot lane, but top side, Andesu's garnered himself, what is that, a 25 CS lead here. It's significant. And bot side as well, for all that they're camping Paxax, Paxax is up CS here. Those are huge conditions for AOE right now, because it does mean they have a lane to play through. Their win cons continuing to scale, and sure, they're gonna give up Herald here, but my bigger question with it is that, can Who Flashed That Fight make this Herald count sufficiently? Can you accelerate the game to the point where you're able to start punishing Andesu a little bit harder, punishing randoms here, or just completely removing Mel Scout or Paxax from the game?
Yeah, you're going to have to remove at least one threat because, man, this 5v5, we haven't seen it yet, but it's just so hard to deal with. Doe getting charmed up, whiffing the solar flare as well, but it's just ult for ult. They want to make sure the mid lane stays alive and stays safe. Stingus hopping in 1v2.
What?
The binding doesn't connect, but what are you doing, Stingus? This isn't the move. He's got to be angry about our all-pro votes, man, because that was bad.
You know what? Okay, we say that was bad. Was the decision bad? Yes. Was the way he played it bad? He actually played it the best he could. He held the Buster shot till after Kenny hit that Soul Shackles. The moment it was popped, he ulted out. And hey, if you weren't jumping 1v2, if you had your escape available instead of using as the engage, he actually might have been able to get out of that bad spot there. But unfortunately, you just gave another kill over to Paxax. And I'm just waiting for AOE God Squad here to turn on their uwu ayaya.
Yeah, waiting for the full power of the shielding and healing comp. It's gonna be so much fun to watch as no one ever dies, unless Random gets caught out here. Heartbreaker over the wall from Donut, looking for the play onto the mid lane. Blade of the Rune King popped, and that means Random is not long unless the Blast Cone gets him to safety. Dustodon looking for the chase down, but the rest of the team is here, which means Random escapes, and they lose out on a lot here of priority on the bot side. Who flashed that fight? Maybe indexing a little bit too much for the chase, and now AOE moves themselves into this bot side river.
AOE's just been getting with the skin of their teeth on this top side of the map, man. I don't know what it is with the side of the map or what's going on, but just they don't seem to die when they're top.
Yeah, don't seem to die, don't seem to be able to find much, and that's kind of the power of their composition. It's designed to evade, designed to not die, maybe not deal the most damage. Dokdo over the wall though, looking for the damage on a Scout, hopping right back over to follow Dokdo. The knockup's there, the rocket will not finish him off though. The TP Dustodon hits a trap. Scout 1 HP, but he's gonna finish off Dokdo before he goes down. Dustodon hopping around, getting a lot of damage in the team fight. Perfect execution. A double root will keep him in place for now, but the rest of AOE are popping off, and who flashed that fight are dropping off as it's a 3-for-1 fight. Now chasing Donut Maker into the mid lane. The Stingus snipe connects no longer, and shut down given over to Random Capitals as it's 4-for-1 AOE. That is the power when they are grouped together.
Their comp is coming online, and Necrox, your job gets real easy from here on out because there's just 2 words you have to use to play-by-play cast at this point. I'll leave you to it. I've already said it enough times on my end. I do want to point out itemization. Random Capitals joining the fight here. I'm a little disappointed. It's not the double Moonstone Renewer. It's going to be Leandry's here. It's the better play in terms of diversifying damage, and it is paying off. The fact that Random Capitals has picked up 4 kills is proof of that. But I would just like to see them index all the way in, just completely mess this up. EP from Andesu, though.
Okay, they want the Drake, they want the move into it first, and yeah, if AOE are the ones sitting here waiting for you to walk in, they have so much time to buy. If they can kite back with their shields, it becomes really hard to make a play. Scout though going forward with the Trellias, nice double stun in from the Solar Flare, finding a knockup onto Dokdo, but that's not the member you want. Paxax, you gotta be careful, man, you're the member they want, they're gonna get him! Double kill already to Dustodon, he's hopping around with the Shuriken flip into the Shroud, making it hard to kill. Triple already, man, he's low, so won't find much more, but Andesu on the run along with Kenny Master Lin, and that is how you counter the uwu and ayaya. You run straight at him and kill their carry.
2 words to describe the AOE comp, 2 words to describe a who flashed that fight win. Kill Paxax. The moment he was down, the fight was over, and it came off a beautiful flank there. Donut Maker getting the turret as well, and that's what happens when you index so heavily into one member of the team and you get the dragon as well.
So well done. We're going to take one more look at how Paxax, man, he's just a little too far out.
And watch where Dustodon and Donut Maker are as well on the back line, right? The moment they come into the fight, suddenly your entire battle lines invert, and Paxax and Random Capitals are in such a bad position. They throw everything at the kitchen sink at Paxax, and you can see that the supports just can't quite figure out where do we block, how do we block, and all the shields in the world doesn't matter if everybody gets to hit the ADC at the same time. The shields work if you can funnel them one after another.
That was really well played, honestly, from who flashed that fight to get that flank in. Paxax can't retreat back to the bottom side of the river because Dusk is on his way along with Donut Maker, and that means he has to go straight into the waiting arms of Baka, who says, yeah, come into me. I'm the Olaf. I've got true damage. I don't care about how much healing and shielding you get. I will out DPS it at this point in the game. Dokdo, though, throwing down the Solar Flare into Scout, not in range of the Zenith Blade, so will not be able to follow through on the kill. Instead, just looking to clear out some vision around this Baron as it is finally up and on the board. It feels like we're so much later in RMC, but just now, Baron is becoming priority.
It's because we've had so much fighting, and normally from an AoE comp like that, you wouldn't expect quite this much fighting in the early game, because they are the comp that wants to scale up. And once again here, you know, last time in game 1, Necrox, at this time, Who Flashed That Fight was really starting to snowball and take over the game. And even then, we saw how difficult it was for them to close out the game. They're in a similar position this time, but Cloud Soul isn't as strong as Ocean Soul. And it feels like AOE is playing the comp better, the paranoia not affecting them quite as much here. As long as they don't get double flanked like that, as long as those TPs are down, AOE just feel like they're in control despite being down gold.
Yeah, they can just deathball anywhere that they go, and that was their plan there. You could see, even to get vision, Kenny Master Lin probably doesn't feel comfortable enough walking by himself, nor would Random, nor would Andesu, so they all have to be together, and that's what they're so good at. Mel Scout here, clearing away top wave, just making sure this tier 1 stays alive. Don't want to have to give up any priority if you do not have to. And Paxax doing the same for this ward in the jungle. Dustodon trying his hardest to get this pushed in, but I just don't know that Who Flashed That Fight have enough map control in order to beat out AOE at an objective. It is all going to come down to execution and team fights. Again, like you said, those TPs. Dustodon has his available in just a moment. Donut Maker about 3/4 off cooldown. If they can force Paxax into a bad spot like they did last fight, it looks so much better.
I will say, though, I'm not a huge fan of the Phantom Dancer being picked up by Paxax here. It gives you more survivability, but I feel like just taking the Runan's Hurricane at this point and then trusting... I mean, you've got triple supports here. Like, you've got to be trusting these supports at this point, you know, and then just let them shield you up. You just stand there and free fire away, I think would be the better way to go. But I expect we'll find out soon, because in 2 minutes, Dragon comes up, and yeah, it's a Cloud Soul. It's not as scary, but you don't want to give that over to an Olaf who's already going to be immune to all the CC that's coming out, who can just run to the backline and force Paxax out of the fight.
Dustodon onto items as well. Rift Maker Zanya's completed, so he can dive in and then press that stasis button to buy so much time for the rest of his team to follow up on his positioning. Stingus needs to be careful. Binding is in. All the CC following through. Kenny going golden. Man, he just can't move. League of Legends is a fun game if you could right-click out of a situation, but Stingus could do anything but as he falls at a really bad time. Now Baka's being run down by Mel Scout, but will not be finished off. Dokto's the next threat, having to flash away from the wind becomes lightning, and Mel Scout looking to start this one up, but Andesu having to pop the wild growth in top lane. Donut Maker showing the power of the season 2021 champion in the Viego, looking for the dive, heartbreaker, and face making absolutely gone. Here comes the rest of the fight though on the top side near Baron. Dokto keeping himself alive for now, but Paxax is dead again. He cannot keep himself alive for long enough, and Donut Maker is now TP'd into the fight. Mel Scout will fall. All the carries are down, and Who Flashed That Fight look to have this composition's number.
Baka with the amazing flash and instantly to sit on top of Paxax, and the timings for it too was so good. All the shields had already been used. There wasn't much left in the tank. Doing this though feels a little overconfident. Donut Maker.
Need to be careful not to lose too much HP. Smite is available for Baka. Bomb on it as well. Random, surely there's no way they steal this one. Oh my god, Baka's dead. Please tell me they don't steal it! It's stolen away by Random! Are you kidding me? You can't let that happen. AOE staying alive. That's huge.
And once again, the celebratory rocket coming across there from Paxax, looking for a kill on the back end. Doesn't matter. AOE God Squad, if they lose that Baron, we're back in the timeline of game 1, where it feels like Who Flashed That Fight just keeps finding an edge. But they get the Baron this time, and with this particular team composition, Who Flashed That Fight, you are forced to run through them, and that does not end well for you with super minions as well. But before I get ahead of myself, Dragon's up first. They've got to do this, and Baron works great on minions. You have no minions at the Baron pit, at the Dragon pit.
Just don't even, because yeah, sure, throw it on the Solar Flare. It doesn't matter. Mel Scout able to pick that one up, but please, no more fighting. They've got the Baron. This composition is already strong enough with a Baron empowered siege. You do not want to fight the AOE side. You just have to hold on. Their siege honestly isn't that good. They don't have that much to take down turrets. Dokto though has been tagged up and he cannot move. Having to go back in means there's no way out. And Paxax grabbing one more, making himself 6 and 5.
I am confused about that popping from Dokto there. You don't get to walk in like that. Your Solar Flare was already used, and this might actually cost them the game here, Necrox. It's certainly going to cost them at least an inhibitor, because without Dokto, they don't have good initiate. Baka on the flank here, but you're still down a member in 4v5?
Inhibitor is gone. That is a formality at this point. Donut Maker still split pushing on top side. Does not have teleport, but of course does always have the B key. And AOE are kiting forward. Their positioning gives away the game plan. They want to look to end the game, but their minions have expired. Only a cannon, but with this extra range, actually does not tank up the turret. Now the engage is coming through. Donut Maker, Dust to Dawn in the middle of everyone. Popping the Zania's popping. The Stasis trying to keep himself alive, but they just can't get it, man. And now the Pack Sax Jinx is excited. They're going forward to Dokdo, but he will keep himself at 1% to stay alive once again. Under the turret, Stingus is caught out, and they immediately find the target they were looking for and blowing him up. Nexus turret number 1 down. Dokdo cannot survive. Neither can Baka or Donut Maker in the fight. They'll have to walk away, RMC. Blink and you miss it. AOE close out game 2 against Who Flashed That Fight.
What on Runeterra's Green Rift was that, Necrox? I don't understand. Donut Maker was still split pushing top, and it was Who Flashed That Fight who engaged it. There was no teleport. You had to just wait 8 seconds. That's all you needed, 8 seconds. And they pull the trigger in your base. When you're down, when the enemy team has Baron, you don't take these risky 50-50s unless you have to. You survived the push. Yes, you lost an inhib, but your Nexus turrets were still standing. You can come back in. It felt like just 2 mistakes from Dokdo back to back, and suddenly everything falls apart after such a good, strong early game from Who Flashed That Fight.
There's a lot of stuff I don't like in League of Legends. Camille one-shotting me at 1 item, that doesn't feel good. But a full ooh ay composition, literally just running you under your turrets, man, that doesn't get much more frustrating. And Serpent's Fang, we didn't get to talk about it because of how much action there was going on. You have to build it. You don't get a choice. No one picking it up. That means they just get to execute on their game plan as easy as that. And Singis getting caught out there at the end doesn't help. But man, AOE, they close out game 2, even with the disgusting draft that they had built for themselves. But now our series is all tied up at 1-1. Anyone able to take a 2-1 at the end.
I think at this point, as odd as it sounds, I think Who Flashed That Fight need to actually consider triple banning Enchanter supports. Because I don't know if Dokdo plays a lot of them here. Hasn't played them this series. So either you start picking them yourself, or you need to start banning them.
I mean, Karma and Lulu are permanently banned across almost every scene everywhere. Game 1, they were both picked by the same team. Game 2, now it's like, what is going on? We need to start thinking about what is priority, what is meta, and what can work really well together. Who Flashed That Fight? Whether it's the snubs in All Pro or whatnot, they're all going for carries, and it's not working out, at least not against this composition. We're going to throw it on over to our analysts, who I'm sure are as excited about this game as we were to watch it. Finnick and DJ, please make some sense out of this.
Thank you very much, Necrox. And to be honest, I'm having a hard time making sense of that game as well. It was over in an instant with that Baron steal. Before we do that, though, playoff update. Gamers for God are now in, as Lotus has beaten New Age Frost, and they cannot get the 2 wins necessary to make it in. That said, currently, Glaive won their second game, so they are currently tied in games with Lotus, but Lotus owns the head-to-head. So right now, Lotus is provisionally in second place and has the bye ready to go. All the other spots are locked in. Gamers for God is 6th, AOE is 5th. Sorry, AOE is 5th. Sparta Prime is 4th, and currently is provisionally Glaive 3rd, but they could be 2nd if Lotus loses their 3rd game. And Lotus is provisionally 2nd unless they lose their 3rd game and Glaive wins. And Who Flashed That Fight is position 1 with that, even with that loss there. So, DJ, exciting end to the game. What happened?
Well, I will tell you what happened. Is one of my favorite things here as the resident vampire on Heavy League. We had a lot of blood here, Finnick, in this game. We had a lot of people trying to make a lot of skirmishes happen, making a lot of plays that I think they might not be making if the game didn't matter anymore. You know, coming into this game, we had Who Flashed That Fight, knowing they're locked into the bye, knowing they're locked in at 1. We have AOE being able to breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that they are locked into playoffs after game number 1. And while I do think these are potentially the kind of comps these teams would play, I think there were some people going for some big plays, some heroic moments there, taking fights that probably wouldn't have normally taken in that game. And I think that contributed to a lot of the chaos that did ensue across the map. We were sitting at 30 kills at 18 minutes. And then, of course, all of that chaos just encapsulated in one singular moment when Baka dies and the Seraphine there steals the Baron for AoE.
Baka was playing so well that game up until that point too. It's just, to me, when I see that, I see, okay, that was a Dignitas, just flat out. Because up until that point, even though the gold was relatively close, the tempo advantage was definitely in favor of who flashed that fight. Grant you, Paxax could scale on to infinity with that triple enchanter comp. Grant you, God Squad played the triple enchanter comp better than they played the double enchanter comp in game number 1. But the tempo was still in who flashed that fight's favor until that Baron. And as I believe Random said, don't take a 50-50 if you don't have to. Who flashed that fight? Got to go back to the drawing board for game 3.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, well, we'll see what kind of drawing board it is here, Finnick. Once again, this game does not really matter. As a matter of fact, only 2 games even matter now, right?
Yep.
Everything is pretty much set. So I think maybe we'll see what kind of drawing board it is. We'll see whether these teams want to take this game that seriously. We do have to preface that, of course, that this game has no impact on the standings whatsoever, but it is a 1-1 series, right? And these are 2 teams that are going to be going to playoffs that may have to match up against each other, right? Depending on how AoE does in round number 1. So for AoE, at the very least, I would expect you want to come out swinging, right? On all cylinders. If you can 2-1 who flashed that fight, what can't you do, right? This is the number 1 team in the league. Regardless of what they play, you think they're the best players or some of them in the league here. So getting a 2-1 to close out the season would be an incredible way to go into playoffs. And for who flashed that fight, you get a bye or what, but you don't want to be losing this game to AoE. So we'll see what they do pull out here. I would just expect a little more in terms of restraint, but I don't think the comp necessarily was the problem from who flashed that fight. Again, I think, like we've been saying, just a lot of kind of over-aggression coming out and a lot of decisions that I think were made maybe not with full thought process in mind, given the game, particularly, again, that one at Baron, which, as we've said twice now, if you're winning the game, right, if your jungler is that fed, if Baka's just kind of carrying again on the Olaf, you don't need to do that 50-50, right? You can find a better situation. You can get a better pick. You can get Baka in a healthier state. It just didn't have to happen that way.
Yeah, I'm still dumbfounded, right? Dignitoses happen. They can happen anytime to anyone. But in Heavy League, you know, you have the number 1 team up against, grant you, a resurging God Squad. I mean, even after that Baron was taken, I thought, you know, there might be a little bit of an iota of hope getting back into this. But then they jumped the gun. We saw Donut Maker going in on that Akali without his jungler alive and just dying with no one else around him. It's like, at that point, I felt like they made desperation plays when they could have regrouped.
Yeah, and who knows what the comms are like, right? But again, could have been just a little bit like, let's see what I can do here. Could have just been a little bit of maybe frustration at losing the Baron. But, you know, Dustodon, very aggressive player. I could definitely see him maybe try to take that 1v3s, you know, see what he can do. Regardless of what it is, you know, I think who flashed the fight, as we've said before, they know how to diagnose mistakes, right? They've been great at it all season. They're the best team in the league for a reason. I think they'll sit down really briefly, talk about game number 2, right? And be like, hey, you know, let's come out. Let's be a little sharper in game number 3. Let's show this AoE squad who we are here and knock them down a peg to go into playoffs with a win. I think that will have some value here for who flashed that fight, and I do expect them to come out at least cleaner. Again, I think we could see some spicy picks here. I think they might try some stuff in draft, but I do expect them to want to at least play the game out in a cleaner fashion in game 3 than they did in number 2.
And to AoE God Squad's credit, it wasn't, you know, even if there is a toss, right? Even if there is a throw at Baron, you have to be able to capitalize on it. And you have to be in position to capitalize on that, right? Paxax played extremely well on that Jinx. Hit a bunch of death rockets that I didn't even think he could have hit in that early stages, leading to them actually clawing back in terms of kills. They played the triple enchanter comp better than they did in the previous one. I still think Melscout looked very, very weak early on. He had the ability to farm, but he ended up going into some of these side lanes where it's really difficult to actually get kills because you don't have a kill lane. And then he ended up falling behind. And at that point, you know, good on him for winning the 50-50, but I need to see more out of Mel Scout this game, of him focusing on him and playing less selflessly, because him playing selfless in both these games has put AOE in very precarious positions.
Yeah, I actually 100% agree with you there. It's sort of that thing where, like, maybe this has been working for them, right? But it just seems to be a little bit of an over-index for Mel Scout. He's not doing enough for himself to maintain relevancy, and particularly in that composition, right? When you are the front line that kind of needs to dive in, engage with those with the shield, with the heals, you need to be in a state where you can fight. There was a fight in the bottom lane, right, where Baka rolls in with a gore drinker and you're still on components because you're 40 CS behind him. Like, you can't win that skirmish, right? You just lose that skirmish, and your team is expecting you to be able to fight in that sort of scenario, 2v2, 3v3. So while I see the good in the ability to go to the side lanes and, you know, try to work on going to Paxax and getting him fed, you do need to consider yourself. You do need to be more selfish, because being selfish and being a relevant member and carry in the game will help your team out in the long run. And there can be a balance of, you know, shading Paxax's lane, protecting Paxax, and Kenny Masterlin in that bottom lane, and still maintaining your camps, right? So there does need to be a bit of a balancing act here from AOE that hasn't been more present in the first two games, because they do need Mel Scout. Mel Scout has been so critical to them all season long, and they can't just leave him for dead every single game to try to get lanes ahead unless they truly can push those advantages, which I think we've seen probably isn't in the cards today.